UFC Shanghai this Saturday from the Shanghai Indoor Stadium, of course, from China. In the main event in the bantamweight division, Yadong takes on Umar Nurmagomedov in a potential title eliminator bout. 13 fights in total on this card. And folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more UFC content here on the channel. According to YouTube's analytics, over half of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, so make sure to do so if you have not yet. Tomorrow, we're going to post our Contender Series predictions, week 3. That'll be out tomorrow at 5 p.m. And then on Wednesday, we're going to post our Road to UFC predictions. There's a new main event. Mahashet's taking on Darius Flowers. They haven't made a poster yet just for that. So we'll go over that on Wednesday here on Greedo Plays MMA. Before we get into the picks today for this full card predictions, also MLB Best Bets on Greedo Plays, the main channel. Last week, Sacramento, hey, we go 10-3 on the card, 8-3 in PFL. What did I say about Stan Dortzneville? I was kind of laughed at a little bit in the comment section for hyping up Stan as much as I did. I'm telling you, future top 10. He's going to be legit. He's still working at Home Depot. Huge plus money cash for us. UFC Sacramento was crazy. I went. Great experience. Shout out to Trevor and his boy in the comment section for finding me in the arena yesterday. Pretty cool over there at the Golden One Center. So nonetheless, let's move on now to the first of our 13 fights from Shanghai, China. We kick things off first with a matchup with a 45-fight veteran in Ding Meng taking on Cam Nelson. It is the second UFC appearance for Ding Meng as he made his UFC debut on the last China card in late May against Jose Sosa. One of the oddest fights I've ever watched. We'll talk about that in a second. He's taken on Cam Nelson. If Cam Nelson wasn't from Canada, I'd probably automatically take him. He's from Canada, though, and now I don't know what to do. Okay, let me just say, again, I have nothing against the country of Canada. Their regional products, though, are usually pretty bad. Remember KB Buller? Sorry, everyone but GSP from Canada, I don't know. Mike Malott is pretty good, I get it. Jillian Robertson, you know, shame on Dean Thomas, but Jillian Robertson just lost a title fight. I'm going to stop bagging on Canadian mixed martial arts, but Cam Nelson is going to get his UFC debut here. Everything I've seen on the regional scene looks pretty good. He's fighting bums. And that's the problem with the Canadian regional mixed martial arts scene. There aren't that many good fighters. So when you get a guy like Cam Nelson, who is somewhat of a highly touted prospect, he gets no level of competition before he goes into the UFC. That's why I would have liked to see him fight on the Contender, but it's a short notice call. He's stepping up, and he's taking on Ding Meng, who sold his last fight. What can I say? There were so many opportunities for Ming Deng in that fight, but he kept on getting tagged as soon as he entered range with Jose Sosa. I thought Meng probably should have won the first 2 rounds. Sosa gets the third. Jose Sosa kind of made a clown out of himself in that fight. He acted like he was up, 3 rounds to nothing at the end of that fight. Very odd, and truthfully, I kind of thought both guys deserved to lose, but I did think if you had to make a winner, obviously, if you had to pick a winner and score it for a winner, it should have been Ding Meng. Instead, they give it to Jose Sosa, but Ding Meng fought that third round so poorly. And again, the most decisive round in the fight was definitely Sosa's in the third. So if you're taking on the one championship scoring system of who wins the overall fight, you probably would take Sosa, because Sosa in the third did more damage, I thought, than what Meng did in the first 2. But the first 2 rounds are razor thin. Again, I believe you give it to Ding Meng, but it's nothing, all that controversial. It's not like he was, 100% pulling away in that fight. I thought Meng was really slow as the fight went on. His striking just looked average to me. It was a straight kickboxing fight between these guys, and it wasn't that entertaining. It wasn't. And Jose Sosa, again, kind of acted like a clown at the end of the fight, let's just be honest. But respect, he got his first UFC victory, and he doubled his pay. For Cam Nelson, again, looks good in the regional, right? Striking looks good. His hands look great. The grappling and the wrestling all look pretty good. But then you look at the guys he's been fighting. Last fight for Cameron Nelson, he fights a 13-7 fighter named Luis Guerrero, who's 38 years of age. He beats him in the second round in the FLA promotion. That has been the main promotion for Nelson. That's Fight League Atlantic in Nova Scotia. I believe it's based out of Nova Scotia. I know it's a Canadian promotion. But he's fighting these randoms. 13-7 fighter in his last one for the FLA championship. Prior to that, he's beating a 3-2 fighter, a 2-2 fighter, a 2-4 fighter. I can't take you all that seriously. And it's the exact opposite for Ding Meng, at least in terms of experience. Now, the guys that Ding Meng has fought in the regional scene, I don't know. He's been fighting a lot. Ding Meng, obviously Chinese fighter. He's fought quite a bit in various promotions. JCK and WLF have been the main 2 promotions for Ding Meng. He's 35-10. This is going to be walk number 46 in the octagon for him, and he's 31. I will tell you, he looks a lot older than 31. right off the bat. Cameron Nelson, I believe, is in his 20s, right? He is 28. Yeah, so just look at these pictures. Does Ding Meng look like he's only 3 years older than Cameron Nelson? I don't really buy that, but I guess that's what happens when you have 45 professional fights at this young of an age. 31 is still fairly young. You're just entering your prime. And Ding Meng is already, again, going into pro fight number 46. I hate the amount of damage you take through that. He's also had multiple pro kickboxing bouts in WLF as well. I would say the guy's had probably about 60 professional combat matches / fights. It's a lot. And he's fought a lot in the regional scene. He's beaten some fighters, but again, I don't know who these dudes are in the regionals in China. There's nobody that Ding Meng has beaten in the regional scene that stands out, and it's a name that you know who's actually had success outside of the Chinese regionals. He got a chance on the Contender Series back in 2024 against Rami Hamed. He lost the fight by decision. Neither guy, of course, was offered the contract. Ahmed since went to Brave and actually lost the fight in his last one before beating Zach Jusala and Game Bred Bare Knuckle MMA. Okay. Ming wins one fight in Uriah Faber's A1 Combat for their championship against the 10-3 guy at welterweight, and then immediately he gets signed. He was favored to beat Jose Souza, and ultimately he came out with an L. I'm going Cam Nelson here. I'm not impressed with either guy. Odds are about even. I probably wouldn't bet on it, but I think Cam Nelson does enough on the feet. Ding Meng to me was so hittable in his last fight. Maybe Nelson's playable. He's much 3 years younger, but way less experience, which I think helps him here. Nelson probably chings Ding Meng or Meng Ding in the first round, in my opinion. I'm going to go Nelson in the first by KO, sending the Chinese fighters to kick off the card at 0-1. Another Chinese fighter here with our second fight of the night. It is in the strawweight division as Zhang Jingyang makes her second walk into the UFC octagon as she takes on Brazil's Julia Polastri. Polastri a favorite in terms of the odds. If you care, Tapology voters are siding with the Chinese fighter as Yang Jingnan, 72% of the votes on Tapology are going, of course, towards her, 28% going towards Polastri. Polastri's a favorite for a couple of reasons, I believe. I understand Polastri is 3-4 in the UFC, but I think the reason she's favored is because at least of a lack of respect for Yang Jingnan, and I kind of get it. 38 years of age, made her UFC debut, and immediately she gets the Angela Hill test, right? That's a great, determining fight to really let us know where you are at in terms of UFC caliber. If you're able to pass the Angela Hill test, okay, you can kind of work towards a top 15 fight. If you can't beat Angela Hill, get ready for the early prelims and at least the first fight or second fight of every early prelims against, the Julia Polastris of the world. And it wasn't just that, okay, Jingnan loses, who is, by the way, the reigning 1FC champion. She had defended the 1FC flyweight championship, 8 times. Had most recently won a fight and won in 2025. And yes, she's 38 now, but she didn't just lose to Angela Hill. She got dominated. Angela Hill doesn't just win every single round of that fight. Angela Hill wins every single minute of the fight. Angela Hill wins every single striking exchange in the fight. Angela Hill takes down Xiong once, but again, it is primarily a beat down on the feet by a 40-plus-year-old Angela Hill. Respect to Angie Overkill, veteran of the sport. They might put her in the Hall of Fame. Just putting that out there. Just get ready for that if they do. It's a beatdown. 30-27 on all three cards, and that's the exact right card. And that's a problem if you're Zhang Jingnan. You hadn't fought, you only fought once in the last 3 years going into that bout. Yes, you were the 1FC champion for years, but one fight from 2022 to 2026, you win it against Bo Ming in 2025. But then you come into the Angela Hill fight, you look slow. Hill beats you to the punch every single time. And now you're 38. You're making your second walk into the UFC. I will say it is rare the UFC signs fighters at this age. They do it here with Xiong because, of course, to get her on the China cards because of the experience and the championship experience in 1FC. I just think she's over the hill now. Looked significantly slower against Angela Hill than she had in her fights in one championship. And you can say, well, that's just the difference of fighting UFC caliber fighters and fighting Angela Hill, who's been in and out of the top 15 her entire career. She's fought multiple world champions. Well, that could definitely be the case. I do think partially it is because the Chinese fighter is just slowing down at 38 years old. And for Julia Polastri, 10 years younger in this fight, which again, I do think makes a huge difference. Yes, Polastri's lost 2 of 3. Losses are to Talita Alencar and to Lupi Godinez. Both of those fighters wrestle. Julia Polastri has been more than comfortable on the feet in some of her fights in the UFC. In her win on the Contender Series, she won it on the feet against Corey McKenna. Polastri was winning on the feet. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she gets the finish. That's exactly where Julia Polastri wants this one, is in the stand-up game, and it's not like Zhang Jingnan is going to look to wrestle. She's a boxer in her own right, so both fighters here get the fight where they want it. They get it in the striking exchange. They get striking exchanges. They get in the range that they want. Julia Polastri is going to win. I think so. Man, I'm telling you, Zhang Jingnan looked that bad in her last fight. I think Polastri beats her every single time. I think Polastri's quicker. I think Polastri's going to throw with more volume. And a 38-year-old strawweight doesn't usually bode all that well. You lose your debut. I do believe the Panda's the nickname for Zhang Jingnan. I think she's going to be the bigger fighter in terms of, strength. I think size-wise, obviously, she's going to be a little bit taller, but I do think she's probably going to be stronger than Polastri if this fight gets into some clinching exchanges. But I think purely stand-up-wise, Polastri is better. She's going to do enough damage on the feet, I believe, to outstrike the Chinese fighter here in the Panda, Zhang Jingnan. And I'm going to go with Julia Polastri to win. Again, not a fight I bet on either, right? These are going to be, early morning / late night cards. However you're staying up or getting up early to watch this one on at least, early Saturday morning. I'll just be pulling an all-nighter, of course. I'm going Julia Polastri here, right? I can't wait to be watching this at 1 a.m. I think Polastri beats Zhang to the punch every single time, just like Angela Hill did. The fighter who's 10 years younger to me has an advantage. I'm going to go Julia Polastri by decision. I know she's the underdog on Tapology. I'm siding, though, with the books on this one. Let's go to the bantamweight division. Two fighters making their UFC debuts, as we've got Brazil's Hector Santiago at 33 years of age taking on City Kickboxing Zone in Lawrence Lee. Lawrence Lee finds himself as a pretty sizable favorite here in his debut. Of course, this is a road to the UFC winner. 8-1 as a pro, only loss came back in his fourth ever fight in Eternal MMA. He wins the road to the UFC in his last bout as a plus 230 dog against Sulangbro. He gets it done. Now he gets a fighter also making their UFC debut, or his UFC debut, Hector Santiago, who is 6-1 as a professional mixed martial arts fighter, but has an experience in pro boxing, has had a bunch of pro boxing fights, at least from what I have seen. He actually fought in karate combat as well. He's coming off back-to-back MMA victories in 2026. He beat a 7-3 Paulo Nogueira on Money Moicano MMA in his last fight. Prior to that, he beat Fernando Henrique in Puro Impacto FC. A fight prior to that, 3 fights ago for Santiago in late 2025. He got subbed in the second round by a fighter who was 13-7. Feels like we're grasping a little bit for some of these fighters recently, at least with the UFC. Terrence Chapman, who fought Anthony Wint recently. Ryan Coos. I don't know. They do find their hits, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Stan was a huge hit. Dorseyville's a huge hit. Hector Santiago? Sure. From what I've seen, he hits fairly hard. Other than that, doesn't do much well. He hits hard. I think Lawrence Lee's got a speed advantage. From what I have watched out of Hector Santiago, grappling isn't that great. His kicks aren't really all that effective. At least in the karate combat fight that I watched, he gets teep kicked, or body kicks, probably a better way of putting that, in the first 20 seconds of the fight. He loses from there. This is a guy who's a pure boxer. He's not really going to throw the kicks much. He's strictly looking to use his hands. This is a mixed martial arts fight, and we're going to see a fighter later on the video who is a former K1 kickboxer. He's got a pretty favorable matchup. We'll talk about that later. But Lawrence Lee here is the all-around MMA guy, and he should be able to beat Hector Santiago. The kicks, I believe, are going to be huge in this one if you are Lawrence Lee. I know he doesn't throw kicks, doesn't throw them more than any other fighter, I'll say. But if this fight ends up on the feet for an extended period of time, the kicks are going to take Lawrence Lee quite far, I believe. Again, doesn't throw them that much, but he'll throw them at a higher rate than Hector Santiago. The difference maker, though, in this one is certainly the wrestling out of Lawrence Lee. That's how he wins the road to the UFC in his last fight. Ultra competitive bout against Sulangbro. I thought Lawrence Lee probably did enough to get it done. Competitive first round, but probably goes to Sulangbro. Second and third, I believe, are Lawrence Lee rounds. Barely edges out Sulangbro in the striking in both of those, but again, some of that work in terms of the striking numbers is on the ground. Lawrence Lee goes 7 for 15 on takedowns in that fight. 5 minutes of control time. He's taken on a pure boxer here. I wonder what's going to happen. Again, if this fight gets stuck on the feet, I do think Lawrence Lee has pathways. I think the kicks are going to be huge. I know he doesn't throw them often, but that's probably going to be his best pathway, at least in the feet, because we've seen so far Hector Santiago doesn't really, adapt to those well, doesn't defend those all that well because of the pro boxing background. But I would imagine stuffing takedowns is a lot tougher for a pro boxer than blocking head kicks and blocking body shots, or body kicks. Lawrence Lee is going to wrestle, and Hector Santiago is going to be in a lot of trouble. Just 3 fights ago, Hector Santiago got taken down, and he got subbed in the second round by a guy, again, who has a 13-7 record. I think Lawrence Lee definitely uses the wrestling. I'm more so questioning, okay, is he just going to punch once he gets down there? I believe so. He has never won via submission. He does have a couple finishes, I do believe. Yeah, he has, I think, 1 or 2 by TKO on the ground. You saw in his last fight in the semifinals prior to going into, or prior into fighting in the finale, he did win by knockout in the second round of the road to the UFC. And the striking, again, has been there at times for Lee in his fights, but 2 out of the 3 victories in road to the UFC were through the wrestling. Did drop both of his opponents, I will say, in the first 2 fights that he had in road to UFC. The first fight that he had actually got dropped twice. Lawrence Lee got dropped twice, but he returned the favor, knocking down his opponent once as well, but was able to out-wrestle and out-position and ultimately out-damage his opponent in that first bout. Second fight, he wins via knockout in the second, and then, of course, the championship fight for our UFC, he out-wrestles his way to victory. I can't imagine he's going to do much else different here against Hector Santiago. Does he punch? Does he look for submissions? I don't know. Ultimately, I think Santiago probably makes it the distance with him. I think Lawrence Lee will win a decision just because of how his last fight went. I think Sulong Bro might be a little bit better than Hector Santiago, if I'm being fair here. But I will go with Lawrence Lee to win by decision. This is not a boxing fight. This is a mixed martial arts bout. The better mixed martial arts fighter is Lawrence Lee. And obviously, not always is the better fighter win. I get it. But I think Lawrence Lee will get it done here. Give me CKB zone. Lawrence Lee winning his UFC debut against Hector Santiago. Santiago, to me, is one of those guys that I kind of question, why is he even in the UFC in the first place? We go to the featherweight division. I don't know why this fight's buried so low on the card, but this is a good one, as we've got Victoria, Australia's own, and Jack Jenkins taking on St. Louis, Missouri's Sean Woodson. Phenomenal fight, in my opinion, at the 145-pound division. I will tell you, Sean Woodson is going to be significantly taller than Jack Jenkins. Jenkins 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. Sean Woodson's going to have 10 inches of reach on Jenkins. 78 inches is the reach for Woodson. He's 6 foot 2 inches tall. Of course, Woodson, kind of, anorexic. Of course, I'm not making fun of anorexia, but he's very thin in there, right? We've joked about that at times with Jose Johnson, who was 6'1" at 125 pounds. Sean Woodson is a tall, skinny dude. He's a lanky guy at the weight class, but the Sniper, that's the nickname, it does fit him quite well, I will say, for a guy who doesn't seem like he's packing the most muscle, because if you're fighting at 145 pounds at 6'2", obviously you're not carrying that much muscle. He does hit quite hard for the weight and for, again, the lack of muscle that he has. Now, Woodson only fought once in 2025, and it was a TKO loss in the third round in Miami, Florida against Danny Ige. In 2024, he did fight 3 times, won all 3 of those bouts, with the first one being against Charles Air Jordan, who's being booked for a huge fight coming up against Chito Vera, a fight that Charles probably wins. But Woodson goes 3 for 3 in 2024, beats Charles Jordan, beats Alex Caceres, and beats Fernando Padilla as well. The Padilla fight does end in the first round with a KO for Woodson. So again, he packs a punch, but I would say more, again, and I'm not just saying this because of the nickname, but more so of a sniper. He's going to pick his spot, but when he lands on the chin and when he connects, he's going to put guys down. Now, he has a knockout win over Colin Anglin, Fernando Padilla. That's been his knockout win so far in the UFC. He's taken on Jack Jenkins, who is going to deal quite a bit with a lack of reach in this one. Woodson, again, is significantly taller, but I do kind of wonder, how does Jack Jenkins get into range? Because we're not talking, we will talk about fights sometimes where, okay, a guy's got a 5-inch reach advantage. He's got a 6-inch reach advantage. How do they overcome this? 10-inch reach advantage is crazy. Because if Sean Woodson, and I say this a lot about fighters who have range and are lanky and, have a reach advantage, are they able to use that reach advantage to their advantage, okay? If you're able to stick that jab the entire time, and sure, maybe you're not, the most entertaining doing this, but if you're able to stick your jab the entire fight, kind of be on the back foot somewhat, but every time your opponent crashes, boom, jab him in the face, and discourage, of course, your opponent from trying to blitz you. There are some fighters who do know how to use their size. There are other fighters who don't. Biggest example of a fighter who didn't know how to use his size, Stefan Struve. How many clips have you seen of Stefan Struve getting hit with an overhand or a hook shot within close, and Struve's, getting his head knocked off? There's at least 5 of them out there, right? I think Woodson manages well enough in this one. For Jack Jenkins to get going, again, he's going to have to close the distance, but it is way easier said than done. I think he's going to have to look to wrestle some as well, but again, how does he overcome that reach disadvantage? Jenkins' last fight, he did beat Ramon Tavares. He wins the fight by decision. He wrestles Tavares some, but of course does do some work in the striking as well. Third round is given to Jenkins because of the wrestling, but I thought he had won rounds 1 and 2 prior to that. I believe one judge gave Tavares the second in that one. I thought it was a pretty decisive Jenkins victory. Fight prior to Ramon Tavares, he did lose to Gabriel Santos. He knocked down Santos earlier in the fight, but ultimately got submitted in the third round with a rear naked choke. Jenkins beat Herbert Burns. Don't care. That's an easy win. Lost to Shepe Mariscal. Jenkins essentially, I believe, broke his arm in the fight. I don't know if he officially broke his arm, but there was an arm injury which led to the Shepe Mariscal win. Jack Jenkins' a victory over Jamal Emmers, which I guess is going to continue to age better and better as pretty boy Jamal Emmers just beat Larion Douglas. Great. Larion Douglas gets fraud checked by Jamal Emmers. Why not? Why not? I think Woodson wins here. I think Woodson outstrikes Jack Jenkins, and Woodson has been a very difficult guy to take down in the UFC. Last guy to take down Woodson was Luis Saldana in 2022, and before that, Youssef Zalal? And Youssef Zalal, you know how good of a wrestling game he's got. Youssef Zalal went 2 for 17 on takedowns against Sean Woodson. I don't think Jack Jenkins will be able to take down Woodson if that's the case. Again, Zalal, as good as it gets. Youssef Zalal was like this close to submitting and out-scrambling Aljamain Sterling to get a victory and get a finish victory in their fight in a main event just a couple months ago. And that guy couldn't take down Sean Woodson. I don't think Jenkins will be able to do so, and I think Jenkins is going to struggle a lot dealing with range in this one. I don't think Woodson gets a finish. I think it's a decision. But again, as long as Woodson's able to use this reach, which he should be able to, you're 6'2" at 145 pounds with a 78-inch reach, he should be able to win. For reference, there's a light heavyweight fight on the main card between Levi Rodrigues Jr. and Nuzzi. Both of those guys have 76 and 77-inch reaches respectively. Sean Woodson has a bigger reach, or longer reach, than both of those light heavyweights on the main card. Woodson by decision over Jack Jenkins. Moving on to our next fight on the prelims, we go to the bantamweight division. It is the UFC debut of PFL Europe's Francisco Nuzzi as he's taken on China's Long Xiao. So far, the Chinese fighters are 0-2 on this card with back-to-back L's from Ding Meng and Zhang Jingnan. Let's see if Xiao can get them their first win. Xiao training out of Shanghai, China, coming off back-to-back L's to Su Young-yu, and the odd fight, let's say, against Cody Garbrandt, a fight where Long Xiao had multiple points deducted from him, and despite that, you can make the case he still should have won 28-27. On the flip side, he's taken on Francisco Nuzzi, who has fought in the PFL before, did lose a fight to Mando Gutierrez in the PFL back in 2025 by submission in the tournament. Gutierrez would then go on to the second round and get finished by, I think Justin Wetzel finished Gutierrez, right? Or was it by decision? It was a decision, excuse me. But Gutierrez then lost to Justin Wetzel after that. Don't like it. Nuzzi's PFL career was 1-1 with one no contest. The only victory for him came back in PFL Europe in 2023. Picked up a head kick knockout in a fight in which he was a -300 favorite. He then loses to Mando Gutierrez in 2025 for the 135-pound tournament championship. Then goes to Cage Warriors, wins a fight against Lucas Rodriguez, and then most recently appeared in Cage Warriors in April. Fight ends in the first round due to an accidental groin kick. Of course, Nuzzi then, of course, picks up his second no contest. UFC signs him off of that. He's 1-1 in his last 3 fights, and he gets signed. Again, I feel like we're kind of just signing anybody right now. For Long Xiao, I'm not all that impressed. This is a guy who did not win the road to UFC, lost in the championship fight to Chang Ho Lee, gets signed anyway, beats Quang Lee in his UFC debut. He knocks out Lee in the third round. Then, of course, the aforementioned back-to-back losses to both Su Young-yu and Cody Garbrandt. What does Xiao do all that well? I mean, if he lands, he hits really hard. I think he tries to out-volume his opponents, and I guess it usually works. I mean, it did against Quang Lee until the point eventually where he got a knockout. You saw it some on the road to UFC as well. Actually fought in the Contender Series back in 2021 as well. He lost to Christian Quinones, which it's not a loss that's aging all that well. The Garbrandt fight's just so odd, UFC 326. Again, multiple points are deducted by Long Xiao in that fight. 2 points are taken off because of low blows. And yet he arguably still should have won. I was not mad with Cody winning because we had taken Cody. You can go back and rewatch Cody versus Long Xiao. And yes, again, Long Xiao is hitting Garbrandt beneath the belt. I get it. You can make the case Long Xiao wins every single round. And if that's the case, scorecards should go 28-27 for Long Xiao. because the original cards should have been 30-27, but with 2 points deducted, then it could have gone to the Chinese fighter instead. All 3 scorecards go to Garbrandt. Again, watching it live, I was thinking, okay, probably Cody gets this. But I don't know. You go back and rewatch it, you can make the case Long Xiao should have won. Of course, he has a negative fight IQ in that one. I get it. Continuously, kicking Garbrandt in the balls. I understand. And partially, again, that's Cody just being over the hill. Garbrandt, since, of course, fought Adrian Yanez, and that fight obviously didn't go well for Cody No Love. But I think Long Xiao isn't that bad. Nuzzi, I'm just really surprised they signed him. I really am. He's got good first round. He's got a good first round blitzing ability. He's gonna throw a lot in the first. Some of his fights he gets out of the first round, he's just not the same. I understand Manu Gutierrez subbed him in the first round in their PFL tournament fight, but a lot of what Nuzzi does is in the first. If I'm Long Xiao, I'm looking to survive that first round, and I'm looking to take over the fight from there and looking to build after the first 5 minutes. And I think he does exactly that. I believe this is somewhat of a short notice call for Nuzzi, who again, I'm not quite sure why they signed him and why they didn't opt to just send him to the contender, because again, they keep on signing a lot of these guys who feel like contender series fighters who just haven't even fought on Tuesday night yet. I'm going Long Xiao here. I think Xiao is going to be able to win this fight in the second and third. Nuzzi's going to go for it in the first. It makes sense. UFC debut, he's going to blitz early. I think Long Xiao avoids that. I think probably does drop the first, but in my opinion, the Chinese fighter wins rounds 2 and 3. Then taking a 29-28 decision. Xiao gets it done, likely with his contract on the line after the stinker he put up against Cody No Love. I'm going Long Xiao to win by decision, giving China their first victory of the card. They're 1 and 2. We go now to the flyweight division as we've got Japan versus Peru, as we've got a ranked fight in the flyweight division. This is not the featured prelim. Our next fight in the flyweight division is going to be that. But we got Ray Tsuruya taking on Kevin Borjas. Take a guess who the ranked fighter in this fight is. Is it the minus 650 Ray Tsuruya, or is it the plus 450 Kevin Borjas? It is actually, surprise, Kevin Borjas. According to the meta rankings, Kevin Borjas is the 11th ranked flyweight in the world. He picked up a victory over Andre Lima in his last fight. Borjas, who we thought was probably going to be cut if he lost that fight, took it on short notice and, again, was trying to salvage his job. Maybe even if he lost the fight, he somehow wins and they rank him. Sure, he beat a ranked guy. Are we sure? Borjas is 2 and 4 in the UFC. His only other victory is Ronaldo Rodrigues, which I guess isn't a bad win. Sure, Rodrigues hasn't fought since that fight happened, though, in 2025, so I don't know. I don't know why Borjas is ranked. I have no idea. His losses, Joshua Van. Okay, again, like expected. Alessandro Costa's pretty damn good. What can I say? It's the other loss, Sumadaerji, Imanol Rodrigues. But his wins are Ronaldo Rodrigues and then Andre Lima in a fight where Kevin Borjas missed weight by 4 pounds. And yeah, he was a plus 600 dog and he cashed, but he gets rewarded for missing weight by 4 pounds. And I get it, he took it on short notice, so not much he could do there. But he takes it on short notice. He missed weight by 4 pounds, and they rank him? And sure, should have Andre Lima fought better 100%. I was very disappointed in that performance out of Lima. But it's nothing that, Borjas does, exceptionally well. I think he does more damage. You look at the numbers. Obviously, the numbers don't tell the entire story. The strike count's exactly even. 51 strikes per fighter in the bout, and you look at a round-by-round basis, it is dead even every single round. Again, Borjas probably does enough. Borjas is landing more efficiently. A lot of what Lima is landing are leg kicks. Borjas is actually throwing to the head and landing actual damaging blows. And obviously with the damage-based scoring system, yeah, it should go to the Peruvian fighter here in Kevin Borjas, who again is nicknamed El Gallo Negro. I'm not going to, give my, not going to give my translation on that. Again, I know it's not actually what, we were joking it used to be. But regardless, Borjas is 11 and 5 and he's in the rankings. And this feels like a great spot to catapult the 24-year-old Ray Tsuruya into the top 10. Tsuruya 2-1 in the UFC with his only loss being Joshua Van. So both these guys have lost to the current champion. Borjas, that was his UFC debut. Tsuruya, that was his second bout in the UFC. Who are Tsuruya's wins? Carlos Hernandez and to Luis Garul. Tsuruya is going to take Borjas down immediately, and Tsuruya better find a finish. You better. You are being given a golden opportunity. Kevin Borjas is 2 and 4 in the UFC. Somehow he has a number by his name. If you're Ray Tsuruya, the UFC likes you. They're trying to build up a Japanese star. They tried with Kai Asakura. Well, they're still trying, but they tried at 125 with Asakura. Failed. Kyoji Horiguchi was a fight away from the championship at 25. Loses to Manel Kopp. Rei Tsuruya, you are the last Japanese hope at 125. Again, I expect Horiguchi to rebound, but man, can he beat Kopp? I don't know. Can he beat Pantoja? Can he beat Van? I don't know. Does Tsuruya ever beat any of those guys? Who knows? He's only 24. Rei Tsuruya offers up a different stylistic matchup for a lot of fighters of the weight class. You don't see many dominant wrestlers at 125. Right? 125 is a weight class that's known for a lot of back and forth wars. The fly guys, they're quick. You don't always see just dominant wrestlers who are looking to, take your back and submit you. That's what Rei Tsuruya will do. And when he fought Josh Van, he did take down Van 4 times. He lost 30-27 on all 3 cards because, I don't know, Rei Tsuruya went 4 for 21 on takedown attempts in that fight. But that's his game. On the feet, not that great. And that's Borjas' opportunity in this one. You keep the fight standing, you may have a chance to win. But even in Borjas' wins, I'm not really moved. Even his Contender Series victory was just like, okay, you win. Ronaldo Rodriguez, he did knock Rodriguez down. I thought Rodriguez was massively overrated going into that fight because, we had said it before. I thought Ode Osborne quite easily beat Ronaldo Rodriguez in the Sphere, just like how I thought Ode Osborne beat Steve Erceg. I'm staying on that one too. Ode got robbed in both of those fights, the Picasso of MMA. But Borjas beats Rodriguez, who cares? Rodriguez was massively overrated. He beats Andre Lima. I do need to say Lima's been a little bit overrated too. He just has a big name. He's a good fighter, but he made his name because he got bit in a fight. I don't know. I'm going Rei Tsuruya to win. I don't think Borjas has much to offer in terms of a defensive wrestling game. That's all Rei Tsuruya does, and the wrestling will get him into the top 10. And you don't need, you need to do more than just winning this fight. This is a golden opportunity. You're 24. You're a minus 600 favorite. Finish this guy. Rei Tsuruya wins. I'm going first round submission domination for Rei Tsuruya. I'm believing he's got great top pressure, and I think he gets it done. Going on to our featured prelim, staying in the flyweight division, here is the aforementioned Andre Lima. Now, again, I think Andre Lima is slightly overrated. At least he was overrated going into his last fight against Kevin Borjas. I think now he's properly rated. I didn't believe Andre Lima was a top 15 fighter. Because his wins in the UFC, and he had a couple of them, don't get me wrong, but his wins were Daniel Perez, Felipe dos Santos, Mitch Raposo, and then the fight, of course, where Igor Severino bit him in the apex, and Andre Lima didn't even disinfect the bite. He just immediately got it tattooed right over. Why not? MMA. But Andre Lima, again, goes on a 4-fight winning streak to start his UFC career, runs into Kevin Borjas and loses. Again, Borjas is doing more damage, and Andre Lima kind of the entire time gets stuck just kicking the legs, occasional, body kick, and then, okay, we'll try to, again, work the head a little bit. It was a very hesitant performance out of Andre Lima, and again, a lot of blame has to go on Kevin Borjas for missing weight by 4 pounds. Still, though, Lima is unwilling to pull the trigger, and ultimately he does pay the price for it, not in terms of getting knocked out, but he loses his ranking, and he loses a unanimous decision. He just didn't do damage in the fight. So now he's got to turn around here against the Mongolian in Namsarai Batbayar. Batbayar did compete on Road to the UFC in 2025 and ultimately did make it to the finals, which of course all took place at UFC Volk versus Lopez, 325. He was supposed to take on Aaron Tao in the finals of that season or the tournament for 125, and Aaron Tao misses weight, so they ultimately didn't end up having the fight, and instead Batbayar gets to fight on the road to UFC the next time they had it, at least for the quarterfinals of this season, and he fights Yin Xiao. He wins the fight by first round knockout. That's the guy who Aaron Tao beat in the semifinals. So Batbayar was expected to win that one. They basically make it, the road to the UFC finals just as a replacement for Aaron Tao. Batbayar gets it done. He's in the UFC. He won all of his fights by finishing the road to the UFC. First one was a second round knockout, then the first round submission, and of course then the knockout against the guy that Aaron Tao had already beaten. But regardless, well-deserved. Batbayar now in the promotion. He's a guy who's going to go out there and finish fights. I don't know what the gas tank looks like because we really have not seen him tested deep into a fight against a credible opponent. I will say the power is there, right? He's got really good pop in his shots for being a 125-pounder. All 3 of his fights in the road to the UFC, he scored a knockdown in every single one. The fight that he gets a choke in, the fight gets to the ground because Batbayar drops the opponent. So we'll see how Andre Lima approaches this, especially Andre Lima coming off of that L. I think all around, though, yes, Andre Lima is the better guy. This is where, okay, those leg kicks that kind of lost him the fight against Kevin Borjas, this is the fight where they're going to be impactful. If Batbayar continues to walk 4, there's a very good chance, the way Batbayar fights, he's going to have a lot, if he's getting very heavy on that front leg, Lima keeps chopping that from underneath him, big opportunity. I think Lima might look to change levels, and look to wrestle a little bit. All around, Lima is the better fighter. It's just Batbayar does have the power in his hands, and he obviously has a chance of knocking Lima out. I think Lima, though, probably still gets it done. Again, I don't think he was a top 15 guy going into his last fight, but I can say this, he's definitely not an entry-level UFC fighter. And for Batbayar, yes, the wins look really great on Road to UFC. You beat a guy in the finals who had lost Aaron Tao the fight before. His fight in the semifinals was against a guy who had fought nothing but, 50-50 fighters in the regional scene. I can't put much on it. I truly can't. And, the Road to UFC winners, they see varied success in the UFC. Andre Lima has one. Who is his best victory? I guess it's Felipe dos Santos. Felipe dos Santos, who just won a regional championship in Bison Combat just a couple days ago, so respect to him. Dos Santos, who, of course, on short notice, once upon a time, took Manel Kape to a somewhat competitive decision, a unanimous decision victory from Manel Kape, but regardless, Dos Santos was able to go the distance against him. Lima's got some okay wins. The Raposo fight was a split decision victory for Andre Lima. It's a fight where Raposo did not do much damage. Despite that, a judge did score it for him. I think Lima gets it done. I will say, he looked pretty impressive in the Daniel Perez fight, but okay, how good is Daniel Perez really? I just think as long as Lima's able to get out of that first round, he should win. All of Batbayar's knockdowns come early in fights. It's either in that first round or in the case of his quarterfinal fight winning the Road to UFC in 2025. And that knockdown came 30 seconds into the second round. So survive the first round, you should be fine. Batbayar, somewhat small for the weight class of 125. Not like Lima's the biggest either, but Batbayar 5'4" at 125 pounds. I do believe Lima gets it done. Yes, Batbayar hits harder, but the all-around overall better fighter is going to be Andre Lima. I'm taking Lima to get it done by unanimous decision. There is a reason, by the way, he is a minus 250 favorite in this one. Give me Lima to take down Ulaanbaatar Mongolia's own and Namsarai Batbayar. On to the main card, and we stay for the third consecutive fight in the flyweight division. Main card opener, Belal Hasan makes his UFC debut against Nilson Rojas, training out of Chile, but if I'm not mistaken, he is from Peru, just like Kevin Borjas. Belal Hasan in his UFC debut is a minus 500 favorite and very well deserved. And let me say this right now, I don't think minus 500 is enough. Truthfully, I think he should be an even bigger favorite than minus 500. In 2 years, Belal Hasan's going to be in the top 5. I believe that much in this guy. If you watch our Contender Series videos, which if you don't, I highly recommend you do so. Every Monday at 5 p.m. they're out on the channel. And we've talked about Anthony Wint, who's already gone out and got his UFC debut and his victory in his UFC debut against Chapman in Sacramento. And now this week, of course, it's Belal Hasan. We go over the Contender Series every single week, and I said about Belal Hasan at the time when he was obviously a massive favorite in his Contender Series bout against an Indian fighter named Madrul Sakia. Hasan was like a minus 3,000 favorite, minus 5,000 favorite at close. My goodness, but we had said this dude is the truth. He's legit, right? Quick hands. He scrambles pretty well on the ground as well. He throws nice kicks as well. He's an all-around great striker who, if he needs to scramble in the grappling exchanges with you, can absolutely do so. CFFC reigning flyweight champion coming into the Contender Series, easily handles his opponent in 45 seconds. He knocks the guy out in the first round. Boom, he's signed to the UFC. Again, trust me, Belal Hasan is the truth. So we get to talk about him on the Contender Series, and now, 2 weeks later, he's making his UFC debut, just like Anthony Wint did it last week. I love the activity out of these Contender Series guys, and obviously, they're not making the most money, as we saw yesterday, because California discloses all of the pay amounts to fighters. Anthony Wint's on a 10-10 contract. I didn't know they still did 10-10s. I thought at least it was 12-12. 10-10? Oh my goodness. I assume Belal Hasan's probably on a 10-10 as well. Maybe not, though. Maybe Hasan's getting a little bit more because he was such a highly touted prospect. But anyways, Hasan's the truth. And he shouldn't be fighting guys making their UFC debuts. And I get it. Oh, well, Hasan's making his own debut. He is. This is a guy who should be legitimately fighting right outside of the top 15 immediately. That's how high level he is. Nilson Rojas is the opponent here. This is a guy who is undefeated at 9-0. he has fought nowhere near the level of competition that Belal Hasan has faced. Belal Hasan's faced some decent guys in Cage Fury. The guy he beat on the Contender Series wasn't the greatest, but still a guy who was 9-1 at the time. Nilson Rojas hasn't seen the comp Belal Hasan has seen. And oh, by the way, yes, Nilson Rojas hasn't seen Belal Hasan. Belal Hasan, super quick on the feet and hits extremely hard for 125 pounds too. It's to the point where, again, I don't know how many fighters truly beat Belal Hasan at 125 pounds. I think you can count them on two hands right now. And maybe that's pushing it, truly. He's going to make light work of Nilson Rojas. I know I'm selling Rojas quite short here, but I would sell most flyweights short in the entire UFC against Belal Hasan. Pretty much every single one outside the top 15, I'm taking Belal Hasan to beat. The fights that we've seen Rojas in, I mean, he's been able to win these like drawn out wars against like a 2-2 fighter I saw. If you get into a war against Belal Hasan, it's not going to be drawn out. You're getting knocked out in the first round. And Nilson Rojas is a primary striker. Okay, great. That's where Belal Hasan wants to be. I've seen fights where Belal Hasan gets taken down, or sorry, a fighter will look to take him down. He'll reverse positioning. He'll wind up on top. He'll scramble. He'll take his opponent's back. He's extremely good everywhere. And I understand he's yet to fight UFC caliber guys, but currently I am yet to see a hole in the game of Belal Hasan. Now again, there will be parts of his game that will continue to be exposed as he goes on in terms of his UFC career, obviously. But so far, so good. That's going to roll into a victory into Shanghai, China this Saturday. This is pure domination out of Belal Hasan. I would like to see him fight into the top 15 immediately. I would, right? On the same card, if you want to book him versus Andre Lima, I'm not mad at that. What will they likely do? It'll probably be him versus Kevin Borjas next. That's probably what they do. They probably book Belal Hasan against Borjas because Borjas would be a former top 15 guy right outside of the rankings. He'll fight two Peruvian guys in back-to-back fights, oddly enough. But trust me, guys, Belal Hasan's the truth. Hits very hard. He's got a decent grappling game. The head kicks are nasty. Throws nice body shots. You saw his win on the Contender Series. He's a quick knockout in the first round. And for Nilson Rojas, again, a guy who is more so the fights I've seen on the regional scene, which again, these are regional guys compared to Belal Hasan. It is more so, I'm taking one to throw one, right? I'm gonna hit in exchange for I'm taking your best shot. I believe I can land harder on you. You can't play that game with Belal Hasan. I don't see a pathway at all for Nilson Rojas. And it is crazy. Yes, you see a guy making his UFC debut at minus 500 odds. And I don't even think I think he should be an even bigger favorite than that. That's how highly I think of Belal Hasan. This is a future top 5 and potential future world championship level fighter in the flyweight division. Belal Hasan, the Indo Ninja, representing Indonesia, now fighting out of Everett, Washington, gets this win by first round knockout in his UFC debut. Someone's always got to go. They're both 9-0. I have a good feeling Belal Hasan's going to win this fight. Next up, we go to the light heavyweight division, a head scratcher to say the least. I will say right now, the odds are flipped here. I screwed up when I made the graphic. Okay, minus 200. The favorite is minus 200 in the Oriental Dragon in Lucy. The underdog is going to be Baby Monster Levy Rodrigues Jr. He's going to be coming back at you, plus 155. Okay, really weird fight. So originally this was supposed to be Lucy versus Junior Tafa. Probably a fight that Junior Tafa could actually win. I don't know. But it gets obviously scrapped. Tafa injured. In steps Levy Rodrigues, who was awful in his UFC debut. One of the worst debuts I've seen in a very long time. Rodrigues is getting pieced on the feet and had zero idea what to do on the ground. Had no clue against Felipe Franco how to get up from his back. He's, at points, Levy Rodrigues is throwing punches off of his back. He's got no clue what to do, and Franco drowns him down there. Rodrigues had won on the Contender Series against football coach Freddie Vidal, high school football coach Freddie Vidal. Levy Rodrigues, after the fight, pops for performance-enhancing drugs. They still sign him. Comes into the UFC, loses his initial fight again to Felipe Franco, who we were more than disappointed with as well in the Contender Series. He lost to the football coach Freddie Vidal. My goodness. So just low-level fighting all around. Franco, I guess, hasn't been bad so far in the UFC between the Pinto loss and now beating Rodrigues. But Levy Rodrigues Jr. is losing on the feet and had zero idea what to do on the ground and off his back. Any fighter in the UFC with wrestling experience would beat Lucy. This is as low level as a fight gets. A mixed martial arts fight gets, okay? Lucy, from what I've seen, great kickboxing, 100%. This is a former K1 kickboxer, high-level guy. I watched his fight. So 2 fights ago in mixed martial arts, the fight that I watched out of the Oriental Dragon, it's in Happy Elephant MMA against Ivan Ganitsky, 7-0 Russian, who again has won fights and won championship. I understand he's going to be on the Contender Series in a couple of weeks, so somewhat high level guy. Lucy's getting dominated in that fight. He's getting his legs kicked out in that one. Ivan is using all of his tools. He's taking down the Oriental Dragon multiple times in the fight, and eventually Ivan gets the second round TKO. Now, that fight was 2 years ago. Lucy's had 1 fight since. It was in WLF Wars against a 2-5 Ivor Barbernov. Sure, he wins the fight by first round knockout. It is undeniable the power that Lucy has and the kicks that he has. The kicks that he has, the power that he generates with those kicks, 100%. I don't think he knows how to wrestle. I don't think he has any idea how to wrestle. Sure, again, it's been 2 years since I watched him fight Ivan, and Ivan is an undefeated guy in his own right. Likely will be earning a UFC contract in just a couple weeks' time, which is kind of interesting because Lucy's already in the UFC, but whatever. Most fighters, and I would say maybe every 205er can beat Lucy in the UFC. Except for Levy Rodrigues. I'm serious. I think I might take Kevin Christian probably loses. He was awful in his fight against Alekina and Tafa. Does Luke Fernandez beat Lucy? I think so. I think Levy Rodrigues and Kevin Christian are the only 2 light heavyweights on the roster who don't win this fight. I mean, if you're Levy Rodrigues, on a full camp, I'd probably take him. Because a full camp, you're going, okay, see our opponent, we're watching film, he can't wrestle. He's a former K1 kickboxer. Okay, great. We're going to wrestle the entire camp. We're going to get you ready. You're going to be in peak conditioning, and we're going to, out-scramble this guy for 15 minutes. We're going to pick up a win, or we're going to TKO the guy. Great. He's taking the fight on like a week's notice. Your wrestling game's not going to improve that much over 7 days. Obviously, yes, you can tune it up, and you can get to a point where you feel a little bit confident in yourself. But for a guy who's never wrestled in any of his fights and looked lost on the ground in his last fight, and that's what ultimately cost him against Felipe Franco. Don't get me wrong, he was going to lose on the feet regardless, but he was losing on the ground quite easily against Felipe Franco. How are you going to turn that around? You're fighting a month later. And you took a fight on a week's notice against a former K1 kickboxer. You have to take him down. You need to, put up a Austin Lane versus Robelas de Spain performance. I don't think he can do so. So he's a sitting duck on the feet. He's going to get knocked out. Sure, again, he'll try to throw back. Great. He's going to get knocked out cold. The Oriental Dragon's going to win for China here. The Oriental Dragon is huge, by the way. 6'5" at 205 pounds. Flip side, Levy Rodrigues, 6 feet tall. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Oriental Dragon here. That's going to mark China's second victory on this card behind Long Xiao. Xiao Long. I think the Oriental Dragon is going to win this one. Levy Rodrigues was so disappointing in his UFC debut. And oh, by the way, he's off the steroids now. Off the steroids, fighting for the second time in the last month, and you couldn't wrestle in your last fight. What makes me believe that you're going to wrestle here? No. He's going to get stuck on the feet, and he's going to get KO'd cold. Or, could happen. I've seen this in the Oriental Dragons kickboxing fights, or kickboxing matches, whatever you want to call them. Leg kicks are nasty, right? Nasty leg kicks. He might just chop Levy Rodrigues the entire way. Give me the Chinese fighter to win. I'm going first round knockout. First round knockout, maybe TKO with those leg kicks, though. On to our next fight, back in the flyweight division. A lot of action at 125 on this card. It's the rematch. Alex Perez takes on Sumadaerji. So if you remember when we broke down this fight back in May, I actually did take the former title challenger in Alex Perez to win. On paper, it didn't scream like that bad of a matchup for Perez, and I liked the spot for him. He was a slight favorite as well. And then we watched the fight play out, and I was regretting my pick. I did have some U.S. currency on Perez as well, so I was quite happy when the fight ended. To be honest with you, groin strike from Sumadaerji to Alex Perez. I think Perez understood what was going on, that he was definitely not going to win that fight. And he says, you know what? I'm done. Respect. He did not think he was going to win that fight. I didn't think he was going to win that fight. That crowd in China did not think he was going to win the fight. He says, I'm not going to fight like this. The groin strike's killing me. Takes the full 5 minutes, says no more, goes to a no contest. UFC says, no, get back in there, we're running this back. Okay. I will say, Alex Perez now gets to, he's had to sit on this for 3.5 months. His camp's been able to make adjustments for 3.5 months. How do they approach this rematch? Because the 6 minutes that this fight was contested in, Sumadaerji was taken over. First round, not the most active round, but Medarji takes down Perez at one point, and Medarji is winning in the striking exchanges too. Second round, all Sumadaerji. And Perez gets low blowed after Medarji knocks him down earlier in the round. The round had only taken place for 90 seconds. Medarji lands a knockdown and eventually does again, kick Medarji in the groin area. He kicks Perez in the groin area, and Perez, I would say again, smartly, so again, I'm not going to continue this fight. So Medarji wasn't pitching a shutout, but he was pretty dominant. And Medarji was basically already on his way to winning the fight. He was going to be up 2-0 after the second round because he already scored the knockdown. It would have taken a crazy comeback in that second for Perez to just earn that round. So again, it was going to be a victory for Medarji. UFC gets to rebook it. How does Perez win here? He really struggled with Medarji's size, I think, and the reach. Medarji, I always say, and I said this too the last time we broke down a Sumadaerji fight, I still think he's taller than 5'8". I watched Sumadaerji, and he always looks like he's way bigger than actually the height that he's listed at. But the reach is the biggest advantage that Sumadaerji has. 72-inch reach for Sumadaerji here compared to a 65-inch reach for Alex Perez. And that's what Perez struggled so much with in that original fight. He couldn't find the striking range because every time he tried to crash in to land anything, Medarji would continue to tag him. And the UFC obviously was not that happy that Perez basically, he did not quit because that was not his fault that the fight ended, but did not continue. The UFC wasn't very happy because obviously they're sending him right back to China. They could have made this fight in the States. They say, okay, you didn't want to fight in Macau, come back to Shanghai to fight Sumadaerji. So back-to-back home games for Sumadaerji, and I really just don't know what changes for Alex Perez. He was not able to take down Medarji. He tries takedowns in both the first and second rounds and isn't able to get either. I mean, seriously, every single potential benefit or every potential positive factor in that fight for Alex Perez, or at least things that he would have in his bag to beat Medarji, got stuffed out. Pun intended, of course, with the takedown, but even on the feet, I mean, those hooks that Perez throws, couldn't find it. He couldn't land anything because every time he tried to press forward, Medarji's tagging him. And Sumadaerji eventually starts to take over the fight. Now he's walking forward. Now Medarji's looking to put you down. Medarji does put him down in the second. Perez is a sitting duck, and he was likely going to be finished later in the fight. If not, again, he was probably still going to be down 2-0. So even if he did turn it around in the third, and we've seen Medarji in the past, obviously, choke some fights. Look at the Matt Schnell bout on Long Island. It still most likely would have been a Sumadaerji victory. So they're running it back, and expectedly right, Alex Perez goes from a favorite at -140 to now an underdog at +175. Makes all the sense in the world. I think Medarji's easily going to win, and I'm going to go Sue now by decision. I think he probably does drop Perez yet again. I could see a finish. I'm hesitant taking Sue to actually stop a guy in the UFC because he hasn't done so since the Malcolm X Gordon victory back in November of 2020. Yes, again, you look at the graphic and say, well, Sue Medarji's got 13 knockout victories. He does. 12 of those are on the regional scene. Only 1 in the UFC. 5 wins so far for him in the UFC are by decision. I likely think that's what happens here. Alex Perez is getting a little bit older. He is 34 now. This is a guy that's been in the UFC for quite a bit. Was part of, I believe, the first ever Contender Series class, right? Was the first ever Contender Series fighter to earn a UFC title fight. Ultimately, of course, lost it to Divas and Figueiredo. It's just the UFC is doing him absolutely no favors by rebooking this fight. The way I see it, they want Sumadaerji to get the victory. They want the Chinese fighter to win in his home country, and they want that so badly, they're willing to rebook the same fight 3.5 months after the initial fight took place. I'm going Medarji by decision. I don't know what Perez does differently here. I really think he's going to struggle trying to get in range in this fight. Oddly enough, a fight that comes to mind a little bit, though, when I think of this one, is going to be such a random shout. Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart. Because if you remember Eric Anders versus Darren Stewart, that's a fight where initially, I think I'm remembering this correctly, right? Eric Anders was easily winning the fight against Darren Stewart, and then he accidentally kneed him in the head, but Darren Stewart couldn't continue. Darren Stewart saw the writing on the wall and said, you know what, I'm not going to fight. They rebooked the fight, and Anders expectedly won the rematch. Kind of what I see here. Usually the fighter who's winning the first fight, and regardless of who commits the foul, usually the fighter that's winning the first fight wins the second. And not much is changing. They haven't fought a different opponent since. Medarji should easily take this one by decision. On to our featured fight of the night. Let's go on to the bantamweight division. Of course, the former flyweight and former flyweight title challenger in Kai Asakura, now up at 135 pounds after a successful debut in the bantamweight division against Cameron Smotherman. He returns to 135 against China's own in the Mongolian Murderer, but again, training out of Inner Mongolia, China, from Inner Mongolia, China, now training at a Fight Ready, of course, in Phoenix, Arizona. Aoriqileng takes on, of course, Japan's own in Kai Asakura. Feature bout, huge victory for Asakura over Cameron Smotherman. Smotherman obviously since has seen absolutely zero success coming back to the regional scene and getting choked out cold in his last fight in Fury, but whatever. Asakura takes care of business. Absolutely needed to win after two very disappointing performances early in his UFC run. Obviously one against the world champion Alexandre Pantoja, the other to Tim Elliott by sub, which was a crafty Tim Elliott victory, what can I say? But anyways, Asakura was supposed to beat Tim. He knocks out Smotherman in the first. That's the Kai Asakura we were expecting coming into the UFC. A guy who hits very hard, a guy who's fighting at 135 and 125, had fought, primarily 135 over in Ryzen. It's a guy who can knock you out with any shot. And immediately goes after Smotherman and puts him down at the left 90 seconds, give or take, into that first round. Massive victory for Kai Asakura, and I think it's smart for the UFC to continue to try to build Kai up. He's a massive star in Japan, right? You look at his YouTube channel and the Japanese fans love Kai Asakura, right? I mean, I knew of Kai Asakura in Ryzen. I think I've told the story before. I'll say it again. Like I still do. I have friends who are Japanese. They don't watch mixed martial arts, but they know who Kai Asakura is because of his social media presence, because he's a genuine huge star in Japan. They'll only watch Asakura fights. So that's why it made sense to me when they booked him against Pantoja, but expectedly, I thought Pantoja was going to sub him. The way you beat Asakura is by testing the wrestling game and the grappling, and we've seen that again through both the Pantoja and Elliott fights. Is Aoriqileng going to do that? I mean, I think he's going to have to try, but Aoriqileng hasn't landed a takedown in the UFC since his third fight against Cameron Else. Yeah, he's probably stuck on the feet. I would advise Aoriqileng to wrestle, but that's not really his thing. He doesn't really wrestle anybody. And I will say, Aoriqileng 2 fights ago knocked out Cody Gibson in Canada, knocked him out in the first 20 seconds of the bout. His last fight, though, got completely handled by Cody Haddon. Cody Haddon outstrikes Aoriqileng 57-6 up until the eventual knockout finish with the knee to the body, TKO finish from the knee to the body from Haddon to Aoriqileng. But Aoriqileng's getting shut out in the fight. Sure, Cody Haddon does out-wrestle him in the first round, but I really don't think wrestling's too much of a pathway for Aoriqileng. Again, if I'm in the camp, I'm saying, okay, wrestle. That's the way we've continuously seen Asakura beat so far in the UFC, so why wouldn't you try to apply that same exact way in your fight against him? But it's just not what he does, not what Aoriqileng does at all. He's a striker, he's looking to bang. If you bang with Asakura, probably doesn't go your way. Probably doesn't. Sure, could Kai get caught? Yeah, but Kyoji caught him. Is Aoriqileng Kyoji Horiguchi? No. Aoriqileng is one of these Chinese fighters who've had a million fights. We talked about Deng Ming earlier on the card, who's had 46 pro fights. This will be pro fight number 40 for Aoriqileng this Saturday. Eventually, all that damage catches up to you, and I think Kai Asakura is going to chin him, right? This is the right pathway, though, for the UFC with Kai. And yes, he's going to go into China and beat Aoriqileng, right? Asakura got a huge reception and a huge ovation when he finally, got over the hump of landing his first UFC victory over Smotherman. And don't get me wrong, he was a massive favorite in that fight because Smotherman, of course, hadn't seen much success towards the tail end of his UFC run, or really at all in his UFC run. But Asakura got cheered in that fight. Will he get cheered here? I don't know, but I'm not against Asakura playing the villain here and beating a Chinese fighter. I think Asakura needs more confidence as the UFC run goes on. Keep on beating these guys who aren't on your level, and that's fine what the UFC is doing here, right? You want to build a star, give them the Smothermans of the world, give them the Aoriqilengs of the world. You know what? Give them Cody Gibson next, or I think didn't they cut Cody Gibson? But keep giving him lower level guys. Is Johnny Munoz still in the UFC? I don't think so, right? Definitely not. Keep on giving him low-level fighters, and Kai Asakura can eventually work his way into the top 15, but until then, these are the type of guys he should be able to beat, and I think he completely disposes of Aoriqileng early. Kai Asakura, first-round knockout, notching victory number 2 in the UFC as a minus 400 favorite. Come back for best bets on Thursday. Hopefully, we get a good look at a method of victory and potentially a round of victory for Kai Asakura as well, but give me Kai in the very first round. On now to our co-main event, and it's Oh. Yang Zhennan versus Denise Gomes. Since I made this graphic, let's just say early Saturday morning. It's now been about 24 hours. The odds have shifted. Yang Zhennan only a -135 favorite now against Denise Gomes. Again, on the graphic, obviously you can read it. We got -155 for Yang Zhennan and +130 for Gomes. Now -135 for Yang Zhennan and +115 for Gomes. So public money coming in here on the Brazilian, who is 11 years younger than Team Alpha Male Zone, obviously representing China, Yang Zhennan. I understand why public money is coming in on Denise Gomes, but I do want to ask, okay, I just want you to make this point. The level of competition is just insanely different between these two fighters. Yang Zhennan's been intertwined into the top 5/top 10 of 115 her entire career. And Denise Gomes is obviously still trying to make that rise, or trying to ascend the ladder and try to get, climb the ladder to get into the top 5 and the top 10. Her best win is Tecia Torres, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Eduarda Maura, who isn't not a good striker. The one time Denise Gomes really got tested, Angela Hill. She could not pass the Angela Hill equation. They give it to all prospects, plus I guess, former one champions as well who are 37 years old. But Gomes gets that big shot in 2023 in Brazil. In Brazil, Denise Gomes couldn't pass the Angela Hill test. Angela Hill takes her down. Angela Hill's outboxing her in spots. And yeah, since then, Gomes has won 4 straight bouts over Eduarda Maura, over Karolina Kowalkiewicz, over Elise Reed, and over Tecia Torres. Great stuff. But it's that Angela Hill fight. And yeah, she lost her UFC debut against Loma Lukbumi. I don't really concern myself too much with that one. It's the loss to Hill. It is. Now, is Yang Zhennan past her prime? That's another serious thing that we have to consider. I don't think so. I think it's more so she just can't really wrestle with high-level grapplers, or at least grapple with high-level grapplers and wrestle with high-level wrestlers. Like, if Yang Zhennan wins here, guys, there's a very high chance they book her against Tatiana Suarez, and I would quite easily expect Tatiana to win that one. But the striking game out of Yang Zhennan is still very good. The last time she fought in China, she dominates Tabatha Ricci. Now, of course, she wasn't able... who was more impressive, Yang Zhennan versus Tabatha Ricci or Fatima Klein versus Tabatha Ricci? I don't know, but all I do know is that Fatima Klein will be the strawweight champion likely this time next year. As long as she's afforded the opportunity, I do think Klein's going to win that belt quite easily against Mackenzie Dern. Okay? Maybe they do Zhang Weili versus Dern first. I don't know. But Fatima Klein, entertaining strawweight, get her the belt immediately, or at least give her the fight against Mackenzie Dern. Yang Zhennan, though, I guess it was pretty impressive for shutout against Ricci. Of course, just Fatima Klein's was, more exciting. Yang Zhennan pitches a shutout in that one. First round, how about 16 significant strikes to 0? Tabatha Ricci doesn't land a single significant strike in the first round of their fight back in August of 2024, right? November of 2024. Significant strike total in that fight, 78-15 in favor of the Chinese fighter. She does struggle with wrestlers at times. Tabatha wasn't able to overcome that, like in terms of she wasn't able to out-wrestle Yang Zhennan. Vina Jandiroba dominates. It took 3 takedowns for Vina, and that's all she needed. 1 takedown a round, game over. Yang Zhennan was fighting off her back the entire time. Don't forget the Zhang Weili fight at UFC 300. Yang Zhennan saw success on the feet, knocked down Zhang Weili, had Zhang Weili in trouble at one point. But ultimately, how does the Chinese champion win? With her wrestling. It's always gotten Yang Zhennan. You look at her fight against Carla Esparza. Carla Esparza dominated her and gave Yang Zhennan her first ever loss. That was a title eliminator on Fight Island. Was that Fight Island? No, that was in the Apex. Whoops. Carla Esparza takes down Yang Zhennan and beats her ass on the ground. Carla got a TKO, which got Carla a title fight, and Carla beat Rose in the worst title fight in UFC history. Right? So that's the pathway to beat Yang Zhennan. You wrestle her, you hold her down. Is that what Denise Gomes is going to do here? I'm sure she'll try. But is this the case of, Yang Zhennan versus Tabatha Ricci? She's able to keep her standing, and then she's able to outbox her. The question you just need to ask is Denise Gomes high enough level to out-wrestle Yang Zhennan for 15 minutes? I'm going to say no. I'm going Yang Zhennan here. I don't think Gomes' wrestling is that good. Like, I've seen her take down Elise Reed. Seen her taking down Tecia Torres. Eduarda Maura out-wrestled Denise Gomes at one point in time 2 years ago in Louisville, Kentucky. I think Yang Zhennan can too. And if Yang Zhennan can keep the fight standing, I know Gomes has got pop on the feet, right? She knocked out Elise Reed, who cares? Knocked out Yasmin Yargi, of course, first round knockout back in Vegas International Fight Week in 2023. I get that. I still trust in Yan Zhanao's hands a little bit more than Gomes is. And I know Gomes is 11 years younger, but Yan Zhanao, that's all she wants to do. She wants to be in those striking exchanges. She wants to kickbox or just primarily box. And, we saw that against Ricci. She was successful. As long as she's able to stuff takedowns against Gomes, I think she wins where she wants the fight. If Yan Zhanao can't win this one, probably should retire. But I think she wins in her home country. Last time she fought in China, she beat Ricci. I think she beats Gomes here. I'm going to go Yan Zhanao by decision. I think it's a levels fight. 11 years older, but in the top 5 your entire career compared to Gomes trying to make that climb. Give me Yan Zhanao. Main event, bantamweight division. The hometown fighter or the home country fighter here in Song Yadong returns to China after his victory just 2.5 months ago in China and Macau over Davison Figueiredo. Song Yadong is back. That was in Macau, right? I'm not tripping. I believe that was in Macau. Song Yadong, it had to have been. Song Yadong is back against Umar Nurmagomedov. Huge fight for the bantamweight division. I will say there is a logjam currently at 135 just because Petr Yan kind of took 8 months to defend his championship. Or sorry, it's going to be 9 months, 10 months when he actually defends the belt. My goodness. Of course, Merab and Yan has been made, but you got Sean O'Malley waiting for a shot after his huge knockout win on the White House lawn against Ayman Zahabi. And now you got Umar Nurmagomedov and Song Yadong. The winner of this fight could definitely make the case to fight for a championship. If you're Sean O'Malley, you are desperately cheering for Song because, of course, Sean owns a win over Song Yadong, which occurred in January of this year. Now, if Umar wins, I don't think they want to do it. Certainly not. But the fight then to make would be Umar versus Sean. I don't think they're going to do it, though. I don't think so at all. But anyways, they're sending Song Yadong out basically as a mercenary to get rid of Umar Nurmagomedov. It feels like every single time in the UFC, when they book an Umar fight, they're just hoping he loses. Because don't get me wrong, Dana and the matchmakers like the Dagestanis quite a bit because they are good pay-per-view. They have a lot of fans. Islam is big, though. Usman Nurmagomedov's undefeated. And then, there's Umar. Umar's already lost his title chance. The Dagestanis have never lost a title fight other than Umar. Think about it. Islam's undefeated in title fights. Habib's undefeated in title fights. Usman Nurmagomedov is undefeated in title fights. And sure, you get some Dagestanis who never actually get to the championships, of course, right? It's like the fighting nerds. They don't talk about the Dagestanis that don't find success, but Umar's the only one who has failed. And sure, like yesterday in PFL, Magomedov lost, obviously, right? I get it. Daniel Marcos beat him, but Islam threw in the towel. But the only Dagestani to ever lose a title fight is Umar. So I do feel like the UFC isn't really too high on Umar anymore because he doesn't have the mystique, he does not have the undefeated aura as these other guys, and he doesn't have the drawing power as these other guys either, right? Like hell, Chanko, John Pork is still undefeated too, right? But Umar, out of that same camp, 20-1. Now, again, he lost to Merab, and he got embarrassed by Merab. I know he won the first 2 rounds. Merab embarrasses him in rounds 3 through 5. What does Umar do since? He beats Mario Bautista by decision. Not entertaining at all. And then he beats Davison. He fought a 38-year-old Davison Figueiredo, had 15 minutes with him, and couldn't finish him. The fight was awful. Just like the Mario Bautista fight, the biggest moment of Mario Bautista versus Umar Nurmagomedov is Umar being dropped. Just like Umar versus Bezkat Almakhan back in 2024 in the Apex. Shamil Gaziev main event, by the way. The biggest moment is Almakhan getting the knockdown. Umar fights are really boring. I don't care what anybody says. Umar's not entertaining. He's not. Okay? Mario Bautista versus Umar is representative of every Umar fight. Take you down, hold you down. Right? Like, I get on Islam some for being boring, but Islam has some entertaining fights in his catalog, right? In his back pocket. Name one good Umar fight other than the Merab one. And don't see the Santiago fight because realistically, you don't remember anything that happened in that fight. Umar did his thing. It wasn't like a high volume fight other than 1 round. And Umar obviously won. He won 4 rounds to 1. I'm not moved by Umar Nurmagomedov, but I will say for what he's supposed to do, he does it well. That's what I can say positively from him. Both fighters are coming off of Davison Figueiredo wins. UFC will look to farm another victory off of Figueiredo next month in Salt Lake City with Peyton Talbot. They want Talbot obviously to beat Figueiredo is my point there. Song beats Figueiredo in the second round by submission. Umar goes the distance with him. Ugh, yikes. Song looked good in the bout. I mean, expectedly, again, he was a huge favorite over Davison. Song needed that victory after coming off the loss to Sean O'Malley. Of course, he had the rigged fight against Henry Cejudo, which no one wants to talk about, how Jason Herzog literally restarted a fight where Cejudo said, I can't see, and Herzog said, hold on, 10 more seconds so we can make sure we can pay out Song Yadong money line. What are we doing? How is that still not talked about ever? About how Herzog screwed Cejudo. We had Cejudo in that fight, and it should have been a no contest, not a, wait, hold on, we need to start it for 10 more seconds so we can get a technical decision. What would have happened, because Herzog restarts the fight, what would happen if Song just spinning wheel kicked Cejudo and knocked him out in the final 10 seconds of that round? And Herzog goes, wait, what are you doing, man? I'm just trying to, get time running. Well, you started the fight. That frustrates me every single time I see that fight. Cejudo versus Song Yadong. Shout out to Cejudo. He actually beat Merab in RAF yesterday. But anyways, Song has traded wins and losses for quite a while at this point, right? Last five fights have been win-loss for Song Yadong. Chris Gutierrez, victory in 2023. The loss to Piotr Jan. Victory over Cejudo. Loss to Sean O'Malley. Win over Divas and Figueiredo. Ultimately, I do kind of believe that's where Song Yadong sits at 135. He's good. He's a borderline top 5 guy. But once he fights the elite, he will lose, right? I think a fight that I want to see quite a bit would be Song Yadong versus Mario Bautista. That would be entertaining after Mario Bautista's big win over Corey Sandhagen. How I would not mind a rematch between Sandhagen and Song Yadong. I know Sandhagen's still going to be out for a while because of the knee injury because of the loss to Mario, but that's, to me, the next fight to make. Song versus Mario, or hell, yeah, but the thing is, you can't make Umar versus Mario. I'll talk about Umar in a second, what you do with him after. It's no secret. I'll say it. I'm taking Umar to beat Song Yadong. Okay, how do I think he gets it done? He's gonna wrestle him. I understand there's tape of, oh wow, look how great Song Yadong's defensive wrestling looks. He's training with Giorgio and he's defending the takedowns. Awesome. We say this all the time against Dagestani guys. Oh, this guy's got defensive wrestling to beat him. Umar's gonna wrestle him for 25 minutes and it's gonna suck. I'm gonna stay up I'm gonna watch this entire card. It's gonna be 4 or 5 in the morning when Umar versus Song comes on. And I have to sit here and try not to fall asleep to finish out the main event. Last time I had to stay up to watch a card, I watched JDM get, slimed out by Carlos Pratas in a main event in Australia. And it was 5:30 in the morning for me. I've been up all night, but I'm like, all right, well, at least I stayed up for something. We're gonna watch a snooze fest. Because Song's entertaining. Song's got good stuff on the feet. He's got good hands. He's a dynamic striker. Yes, 100%. Can't be a dynamic striker when you're on your back the entire time. And that's what Umar is going to do, guys. Umar's going to wrestle him. Song, I know Song's got a 73% takedown defense rate in the UFC. Awesome. Jan took him down a couple times. Wasn't a big determining factor in the fight, but it happened. I know Song out-wrestled Sean O'Malley, but I mean, duh. If Sean O'Malley, again, MMA math doesn't always work like this, but if O'Malley fought Umar, Umar would wrestle Sean too. And that's the thing, right? I think Umar beats every fighter in this weight class but 2. I don't think he beats Merab. I don't think he beats Jan. Merab wasn't able to take down Jan. Umar, we've already seen not be able to take down Merab. Against styles make fights, I get it. But my point being, if Jan's able to stuff the Merab takedowns, he should be able to stuff the Umar takedowns too, right? I've seen Merab out-wrestle Umar before. So I think Umar's ceiling, at least for now, is just the number 1 contender. And most likely they have to give Umar the title fight after this, but they don't, because they've been kind of waiting on the Sean O'Malley fight. They booked O'Malley for the White House, and I personally thought they were going to do O'Malley versus Jan right away, and they're going to tell Merab, okay, just hold on, you're going to get the fight regardless, go get your nose fixed, and you can go fight the winner. Merab said, no, I want to fight for the belt immediately. Okay, if I was Merab, I just would have waited. I get it, Merab wants to be active, and he wants to get paid 100%. I would have just waited. If there's a chance O'Malley beats Jan, perfect. You're automatically back in there to win the championship then. Instead, we'll see what happens between Merab and Jan. I just don't know what changes, really. I love Merab. He's one of my favorite fighters. I just don't know what changes in the second fight between him and Piotr. In terms of Umar and Song, though, I mean, how does Song win? You have to stuff every takedown. And yeah, you can knock Umar down. I saw that against, Bezcott. We saw that against Mario Bautista. But then he's right back on your legs. Clinch, takedown. You're going to get back up, mat return. And Umar can do this, I think, through 25. We haven't actually seen it just yet. We've seen it through 15. I will say, the fight he had against Merab, wins the first 2, loses rounds 3 through 5. I just think Song's going to be ultimately demoralized once he's off his back for the first 15 minutes. In front of his hometown, his home country, I think Umar just kind of boring decisions from here. I know it's kind of an anticlimactic end of the video. And the Chinese fighters have seen varied success on this card. We did take Yang Jiannan though, when it caps him off at 3-4 if Song Yadong loses. I gotta go Umar by decision, unfortunately. Striking wise, yeah, Song better than Umar 100%, but like we say all the time, your wrestling makes your striking better. Song's hands are down, boom, Umar pops him over the top. Song thinks a takedown's coming. Umar, feints a takedown, essentially, changes levels, boom, throws a right. Umar's not going to knock Song out, but he's going to be able to do, more damage, obviously, on the feet because of what he can do with the wrestling game. And if Umar takes you down, yeah, you might be able to get back up, but Umar's just going to dump you right back down. He's going to drag you right back down. And then, okay, you got to repeat the process all over again. And then, okay, he's going to drag you back down again. It's tough to fight these guys. It is. And there's a reason Umar is such a big favorite at minus 500. I think they have to wait with Umar. They're not going to do Umar Sean. They won't. They're waiting for Sean to get the winner of Merab Yan, especially if it's Yan. I think Umar is going to get the loser of the title fight. I think he's going to get the loser of Yan versus Merab, which probably is going to be Merab. Rematch Umar Merab 5-round main event. Then O'Malley fights Yan. Then you can just say, okay, winners then fight in that 4-man bracket. Yes, Mario Bautista is kind of deserving of a title shot if he does win another fight, but he can wait. I assume Mario is going to fight Song Yadong next. That just makes sense. The Song will get to have to probably go to the States to fight Mario Bautista. But I think Song loses here. I want him to win, don't get me wrong. I want him to chin Umar. I just don't think it's all that possible. It's not like Song has, one-punch knockout power either. I mean, the Marlon Moraes fight, he knocked him out great. Marlon Moraes doesn't have a chin. He's fighting in the Global Fight League. Song needs to put together, he literally just needs to fight like Merab. He needs to stuff his takedowns in the 3rd round. He needs to take over the fight in the 3rd round. Song is going to lose the first 2. It's going to come down to the 3rd. I think there's a really good chance Umar just wins 50-45. I will say, right, I blanked on him earlier. He has won a 5-round fight. He beat Corey Sandhagen. Merab's just at a different pace. Song's got to fight high tempo and high output the entire time. But man, again, not everyone's Merab Dvalishvili. And I just think Umar is just slightly below that elite level. And that elite level is just 2 guys, Piotr Yan and Merab Dvalishvili. I'm going to go Umar Nurmagomedov, unfortunately by unanimous decision to beat Song Yadong, sending the Chinese fans home unhappy. But I think Umar is going to get it done. Folks, that does it for our UFC Shanghai full card predictions. If you have not yet, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you just think the picks. We'll be back on tomorrow, at least for our Dana White's Contender Series predictions. Wednesday for Road to the UFC, and Thursday for our best bets for this UFC China card. Folks, thank y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba, forever.